Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this Monday afternoon program. I'm Dylan Ryder from the Johnson County Library. We have the privilege to be joined by Denise Dias from the K-State Research and Extension, who will be discussing income management in the era of COVID-19. Feel free to participate in our discussion by using the chat to add your comments and questions. Denise will attempt to address each question at different points throughout the presentation. The contents of this program will be recorded for future viewing. And thank you once again, and here's Denise.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Great to see you today. I guess you're seeing me more than I'm seeing you, but it's always fun to be able to do a great program like this and share it with you today. So without further ado, let me get my screen set up and you can watch along with me as we talk about the slides for today. So, all right, there we go. So when your income drops, this is a program that has been recently reviewed across the state by several state extension agents and our state specialists on when your income drops. And of course, before COVID-19, everybody, as far as your income, most people felt a really strong sense of security. But that definitely quickly evaporated when COVID-19, landed here and started to wreak havoc on everything. So, the shifts in demands from, closing restaurants and schools, and also the disruption to the food chain supply system and getting groceries and all those things were just compounded by the coronavirus. So for those who did not lose an income, it still was kind of a pain to have to deal with some of those inconveniences. But for a number of folks in our county, they actually did lose income. And so what do you do when your income drops, so to speak? So I know a few years ago, my husband was working and lost his job right before Christmas. It was in November one year, and it was devastating to us, because that wasn't quite how we thought things were going to go for Christmas. And we had a daughter that was about to get married. So, that changed planning her wedding and everything. So it does definitely cause a disruption in people's plans and their sense of security. So what are some things that cause you to lose your income or to cause your income to drop? It could be a job loss, like I was talking about when my husband lost his job. Of course, recession could cause income or a drop in income. Maybe someone gets ill or there's a death in the family. Commodity prices, maybe, for farmers, especially, that affects them quite a bit. I even talked to one resident that lived off of her income from like her stocks and bonds and retirement kind of income, and that had gone way down. It could be a divorce, it could be a pandemic, who knows? But whatever it is, I think it's interesting to note that there are lots of reasons why someone's income could drop. So when that happens, we talk about the 5 C's, about how to deal with a loss of income. So the first one is control. Be sure that you're in control. We're going to talk about claiming what is due to you and what you can. We'll also talk about communication, conferring, and then change. So the 5 C's are how most people deal with income loss. So let's keep that in mind as we move along. So the first one, of course, is don't panic, take control. So what are some things you can control? You might throw a few suggestions up there in the chat box if you have some things that you want to list up there of things that you can control? Okay, Dylan, are we getting some comments there?
Not just yet,
Not just yet. We
but
have
I'm
a
looking
quiet
for them.
group today. That's okay. So some things that you can control are how you feel. Are you anxious? Are you angry? Are you depressed? Maybe you're happy you don't have to go back to that job anymore. Maybe you're just grateful you get to spend some time with family and, you know, can enjoy life slowing down a little bit. Or you may feel guilty that you're not pulling your weight in your family and helping out with expenses. How do you manage your financial affairs rather than managing have them managing you? So you want to be able to be in control of your financial affairs, not having them control you. Where can you find support? For a lot of people, it may be family, friends, maybe a neighbor or coworker or parents, someone else who might be going through the same thing that you are. That may be some things that you control. Avoiding eating out, you know, only spending what you have to. Those are great things that you can definitely control. Look at your expenses and see which ones are optional that you can control. So yeah, all great examples for sure on ways to be in control and not losing control of the situation. Of course, the big thing is don't blame yourself or your spouse or your boss or the government or anything like that. You know, it's best just to take it for what it is and find a way to move forward. Let's see if this. Okay, so we talked about not panicking. Don't waste energy blaming yourself or others. Of course, initially you'll probably have a big shock. I know, like hearing that my husband had lost his job, that was a huge shock, and it just kind of sets you back, and it's like, oh my gosh, now what? What are we going to do? So one way to cut down on anxiety and panic is to be sure that you're doing the best you can with what resources you do have. Just set your mind to the fact that you are going to deal with this situation and that life isn't going to be the same for a while, but that doesn't mean that you still can't, you know, enjoy it or have a decent life. You and your family can still manage your financial affairs rather than having them managing you. And remember that you and your family can take control of your actions. So take stock of your family resources and create a plan to, of course, feed your family, whether that means, you know, having a garden, looking for ways to supplement what food you do have through a pantry or food program, whatever that may be. Also, be sure you want to keep a roof over your head and you want to keep your utilities hooked up. You want to maintain health, homeowners, and auto insurance on those things because you've got to have that to protect you in case another disaster would befall you. And then also look at community and other resources that you can qualify for. It's really interesting that so many resources have just kind of popped up and grown since the pandemic has started. So there's a lot of resources out there, so don't feel like, you know, there's no hope, because there are lots of great things to help you out. So we talk about claim, and I kind of touched on this a little bit, claiming what is due to you. So check eligibility requirements for unemployment benefits and other assistance programs. SNAP or Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program We used to call that food stamps is one thing you can apply for. And I know they've increased how much they're actually giving people as far as, um, you know, benefit dollars and stuff. So that's definitely something to look at. You know, there's also a brochure that we have, one of our publications that talks about all kinds of different community and family resources that you can check into. There's also a program called TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. It provides grant funds to families for support. And also there are other state administered programs to help with child care assistance, job preparation, and work assistance. If you're someone that is old enough or are eligible for Medicare, you might see if you qualify for what they call a Medicare savings program or extra help in order to get you know, some extra benefits and extra coverage and paying for premiums and drug costs as well. So, you know, I think this is one time when, you know, I know like for a lot of people, it's a issue of pride, but I think, you know, you've paid into these benefits for people for years. And so I think it's just, you know, benefits that you should be willing to accept and to try and, you know, take advantage of for your benefit for now. Of course, communicate all your options for increasing incomes. Is there somebody else in the family that could help to earn income or is earning income that could help contribute to your expenses? No matter why your income is reduced, you need to know how much money you have to work with. So be realistic. Include others in that discussion, no matter their age. I think even young kids need to know that your financial situation has changed and that they need to do their part to help out. Also consider all your options. Is there, like I said, someone else who can contribute? Can their contribute, if they are contributing, increase? Can a non-employed family member maybe get a temporary job? Or can you use a hobby or skill as a source of income? I think that's an interesting concept to try and, you know, get a little side hustle going on to get some extra income coming in. So we talked about increasing their contribution, getting someone employed, and then also the hobby or skill. Be sure you consider all your options for controlling expenses. Family members, of course, need to participate in those discussions. They need to understand what needs are as well as wants. And that's a great lesson to start discussion right now. When my husband lost his job a couple years ago, we had our daughter getting ready to get married, and we just didn't have the financial capability to help her out with as much as we wanted to. And so she understood that and was willing to take on more of the expenses associated with having a wedding, but also that helped her to make some decisions about what really was important for that event and what she really could or could not afford to do for her wedding. So once you know how much you have coming in, make a list of your expected expenses. Have everybody in the family talk about that. Decide what your needs are going to be for the next week, the next month, maybe the next 2 to 3 months, and discuss that as a family unit. Delay buying anything that's not an absolute necessity. So that's always a good discussion to have with your family members. Also talk about fixed expenses. Fixed expenses are those things that have to be paid every single month, whether it's rent or mortgage. Those things are things that are fixed. Utility payments, maybe you have some sort of installment on a debt, whether it's a car or something else that you pay on every month. Taxes, if you owe taxes for a business or something, that may be something that you have to include in that, and also insurance premiums. I know there's been several insurance companies that have advertised that they are adjusting insurance premiums on cars and what have you to kind of help people out. And if you're in that situation, what I'm hearing from other extension financial professionals is that it's best to work with your insurance company directly and see if they have any programs or anything they can do to help you kind of still have insurance, but maybe reduce that for a short period of time or give you a break somehow. So definitely, I think that's important. Also remember, you may be able to rearrange or renegotiate some of your fixed expenses. Again, the only way to be able to do that is to talk directly to, your landlord or your mortgage company or utility company, what have you. So, and see what options they can help you with or give you in order to handle those expenses that are fixed. Also think about flexible expenses. Flexible meaning, you probably don't have to have them all the time. I know someone mentioned in the chat box about eating out. That would definitely be a flexible expense. You don't have to eat out. You can stay home and cook a meal at home. For clothing and stuff like that, probably most of us could stand to go without a lot of clothing purchases for a little while. And then also it allows you to be a little creative in those expenses. So transportation, maybe that would involve catching a ride with someone or carpooling. Activities, what activities does your family really need to be involved in? I don't know that there's a lot of summer programs going on for kids right now. A few, but not a lot. But maybe, cutting back on those activities or only participating in one that really means a lot to them would be the way to kind of handle that. So, confer. I touched on this a little bit, but conferring with your creditors is huge. Don't ignore the problem. That's the absolute worst thing you can do. I know it's very depressing to lose a job and to lose income, but probably the worst thing you can do is ignore the bills that are coming in and the statements that keep arriving in your mailbox. So contact all your creditors and talk to them. What happens if you miss a payment? Do they have any kind of a grace period, or is there a penalty if you're late? Do they have a repossession clause if it's a vehicle or a home or something? And then also in that same venue, ask them if there's an accelerated payment clause, because if you miss a payment or two, would the full amount be due immediately? So you want to find out what their parameters are for you if you have to miss a payment. Of course, whenever possible, talk to whoever's in charge. Sometimes you may have to go beyond the person answering the phone to a manager or supervisor to make sure that you're understanding clearly what your options are and what kind of things you need to consider if you're not able to make a payment. Conferring also refers to, when you talk to creditors, know how much money you can pay them. So that means knowing how much, if you can't pay them the full amount, can you pay them 25, 50, 100, whatever you can pay them, and know what that is. Sometimes they'll allow you to make a lesser payment for, several months or a year, and then go back to your regular payment. Hopefully by that time you're back on your feet and are doing well again. Also know what your fixed expenses are and your flexible expenses. So if you know what things you've got to have covered every month, um, and if you have flexible expenses that are kind of, maybe you need them, maybe you don't, that helps also when you talk to your creditors. They may actually want to know exactly what bills you pay every month, and you may have to tell them, I pay X dollars for my mortgage, and I pay this much for my car loan, and this much for insurance. They may ask those questions of you. So be aware of that. And it doesn't hurt to have all that listed and on a piece of paper in front of you when you're calling and talking to them. And also you want to be able to write down who you talk to, when you talk to them, what they said to you. Sometimes that will go a long way. If there's a question, they can look back, or you can say, look, John Smith said I could have, 3 months to, get caught up on my loan or whatever, without any kind of, fault, whatever it is. Be sure you're documenting that too. I think that's also very important when you're talking to creditors about, your debts and how you plan to pay for it. Also, we talked about the timeline of income reduction. If they allow you a period of time in order to pay that back. But probably the big thing is don't ignore the bills and don't ignore the past due notices, because that's the worst thing you can do. Also, you should know when you're dealing with creditors, who should you pay first? So you've got your fixed expenses covered and you're looking at the other things. Creditors who are going to garnish or attach that loan to your wages are those people that you probably want to try and pay first. Also look at what their finance charges are for your bills. The ones that have the really high finance charges are the ones you're going to try and get paid back first or covered first. Also, people that will repossess items, if it's a car or what have you. You probably have to have your car for work, so that may be one of those expenses that moves to the top of the list, because you've got to have that in order to get to and from work. Also, confer with people that provide your utilities. I know typically if you talk with them, they're usually pretty good about working some sort of payment arrangement out. So be sure you're talking with your utility companies. And then anyone who's owed a large amount, make sure that they're okay if you pay a lesser amount, or what do you have to do if you have to skip a payment. If you kind of get in on the front side of things, I know creditors will generally be more willing to work with you than if you just kind of let things build up over time and kind of ignore things. So what about using credit cards to pay off debt? Well, for some of us, that may seem like your only option, but if that credit card has a high interest rate, that may not be wise if you're trading off a lower interest rate for a really high interest rate from a credit card. Also, credit cards come due each month. If you pay off that debt with your credit card, are you going to be able to handle the new increased monthly payment that is going to be included, or that is due every month? So think about that. Also, sometimes by using a credit card to pay off your debt, it could maybe get a bill so high that you cannot afford to pay it off, even if it's the minimum amount or whatever. That's not good. And also, by maxing out your credit, that does affect your credit score negatively. So before you take that step of using credit cards to pay off things, talk with your other creditors first and see if you can work out some sort of agreement with them before then. So I think we're going to pause a quick second. I know Dylan has a little poll that he wants to run. So Dylan, do you want to go ahead and run your poll for our audience, and then we'll finish up our talk after the poll? Okay,
I'd be happy to. Thank you,
great.
Denise. So, you are about to see this poll. Basically, we want to know how you found out about this presentation because that helps us kind of target um, our advertising, if you will. So, just a single question right there. I'm already getting a response coming in. Oh, thank you guys so much. It helps us greatly. We really appreciate it. Denise, how'd you hear about this program?
Well, I heard about it from the library, of course.
Oh,
I just think it's a
really
great program.
appreciated it.
It's just kind of some things you may already know, but sometimes it's good to hear it again. So,
No, most definitely. And I think it's important to note as I end this poll here, in the chat, I threw out a JCL link to a collection of resources that we've put together. Um, Even if you look at the link and I say I'll save it for later and then you forget, it's available right on our homepage, jocolibrary.org. Or for anybody who's viewing this after the fact, you'll see a career and finance related COVID-19 pile that has or tile that has links to different organizations who will enlighten you as to student loan or mortgage forbearance, um, other community assistance, such as food pantries, all of that good stuff. Really helpful. And with that, I will bounce right
all
back
right.
out.
Thanks, Dylan. Thanks, you guys, for filling out our poll for the Johnson County Library. I know that that information really helps them out a lot. So we were talking a little bit about creditors. So the next thing we're going to talk about is checking your credit. So earlier this year, K-State Extension launched a program called Check Your Credit. It does not cost anything. And it's just a way to get people to sign up for an email notification. You get email notifications 3 times throughout the year, and that's to remind you to check with one of the 3 credit bureaus about your credit report. So they're kind of spaced out, and then you get an email reminder, and then a follow-up reminder, and then also some information to help you to understand your credit report, know how to read that report, and then also if you find errors on it, what do you do to get errors corrected, etc. So that's another program, totally free, and you only get just a couple of emails from us. We're not out to sell this list to anybody or anything, but just helping you to manage your credit report. Another interesting thing about credit reports before we move along is that right now with COVID-19 and also with so many breaches in, credit breaches and such, you're actually able to view your credit report daily if you wanted to with the 3 credit bureaus. That's only going to go on for like till next April, I believe it is. So most people don't check their credit report every day, but just know that there are options out there if you need to check that, and take advantage of that while you can to do those checks for free. Because once you get on the other side of this pandemic, you want to have good credit so that you can, continue to do what you want and make good decisions for your financial future. So I think probably the biggest thing that, when you're trying to make ends meet, it requires change. Giving up things, at least temporarily, making changes in how you work, how you play, how you interact in our neighborhoods and cities and such. So change is probably the biggest thing that's going to happen from this situation. So to make it through the hard times, look for ways to reduce your expenses. So family members can use things like time, energy, talents, and knowledge to reduce expenses. Take better care of the things you have. Recycle clothing, swap items or services with a friend. Plant a garden, produce items that normally are purchased. Use resources that are available to you, like SNAP, nutrition assistance, or a utility assistance. LEAP is a utility assistance program that has been extended for people needing help paying for the utilities. So that might be something you could qualify for. There's also public health clinics that you can take advantage of and use if you need health care. Of course, some of these ideas may not be what you normally would do, but it'll help you to get through the tough times, that's for sure. So I know for recreation or entertainment, you may be used to going to movies or to events. And now that many of those things have been canceled or changed in a way that's not like our normal, what we're used to dealing with, there are other options. So one resource that I follow on Facebook is talks about, activities or ideas for families that are free or no cost. And you can even Google that, free or low cost or no cost activities or events, and they'll pop up on your computer. So that's kind of interesting to find out what's going on in the area that doesn't cost a dime to experience or go to. So also dealing with financial stress. There are resources for you. So folks in agriculture, this program is also shared with those in the farm industry. There's a program called Kansas Ag Stress, and they help people that are in farming. The other one, Consumer Credit Counseling, is a service or an organization that provides free credit counseling. So they can help you to, set up a budget and make a plan and help contact creditors and help you to figure out how to navigate through this situation that you're in. Of course, all families have ups and downs, and the steady income, when that's taken away, it can be traumatic, whether it's temporary or permanent. Quite often, the first reaction is to panic. It could be caused by a job loss, a recession, what have you. But no matter what it is, there are places and resources out there to turn to. So we've talked about the 5 C's. Definitely, I think for a family to get through one of these tough times, it's really important that, as a family, you make a commitment to all the 5 C's. And there is a series of publications called When Your Income Drops. One is called Take Control. One is called Making Ends Meet. Another one is on mental health and coping with stress. The fourth is on using community and family resources, giving you ideas of what resources are available to you in your community and available to your family. And then the last one, Sharpening Survival Skills, is really kind of an interesting one. It gives you lots of ideas on, how can you use what you have to either barter or trade or swap or sell to supplement your income. So it has some really great ideas on how to stretch things make things last, and kind of survive this whole situation that you're in. Okay, do we have any questions at this point in time? You can either type them into the chat box, or if you want to ask online. I don't think our group is too big that you couldn't do that. So however you want to do that.
Thanks for that,
Yeah.
Denise. We did have one one general question about the CARES Act. So if, and I believe that will be covered at some point. I haven't gotten a specific question about it yet, but um, just throwing that out there. I did also want to ask about the DCF uh, LEAP program. I went ahead and looked into it because I post about that every year, and we do that at all of our branches. And I realize that the normal ending period is the tail end of March, or mid or tail end of March. But I am seeing on the DCF site that it looks like the application period for 2020 has closed. Do you have any other information on that?
Yeah, it may have just recently closed. I think they extended it a little bit, but even if you're still having issues, paying for utilities or whatever, I would contact your utility companies directly. They may have other programs similar to LEAP that they could use to help you out with that. So, yes.
Awesome.
Good one to point
And
out
we just
there.
got.
So I know, things like student loans currently, they are on a federally mandated forbearance. So student loans are not going to accrue any interest or anything, and you don't have to make a payment on them. You can, if you can afford to make a payment on student loans and you have that kind of debt, continue to do that. But that will go to the end of September. That's not anything that anyone applied for. It was just automatically done across the board for people that have student loans. So,
And now that's for federally funded loans,
right.
correct?
That's
Right?
right.
Similar to mortgages, federally. Okay.
Right, right. There are some, like if you have any kind of state type of loans, if they were to be consolidated into a federal system, they would probably qualify for that, but that gets kind of down in the weeds and kind of messy. So, usually you don't want to do that if you don't have to, but look at all your options when it comes to student loan relief and help with that. There's lots of places for food pantry assistance. I know the traditional food pantries, but also several churches around the area have food pantry programs that you can also visit and take advantage of if you're needing additional resources or food. That's something to consider too.
And school districts for children 0 to 18.
Right.
Those programs, depending on where you're living, they'll go for varying lengths on the calendar. They've already been extended a couple times that I've seen so far. As soon as I get my headphone adorned face off of the screen, I'll go ahead and type that in the chat. I did want to point out Janine has a request for some info on CanCare. So if you have anything on that, and I'll be on the lookout for a specific question to address with the CARES Act. And of course, I start talking, it's the headphones. It's got to be the headphones. Now we've got questions rolling in. Wow, why? So Marty asks, is there a local consumer credit counseling service? And I'll go ahead and bounce off of here so you can
There
get
actually
me out of the
is
way.
one. Yeah, there actually is one located in Olathe in our area, Consumer Credit Counseling Service. I don't have that information at my fingertips, but that's definitely something that's locally available to residents and also to anyone really. Someone mentioned that they that their husband's company was still going to cover them with their health insurance if they're put on furlough. That's the one good thing, I guess, if there is a good thing to a furlough, is that by being furloughed, a lot of times you can keep your health insurance through the company, um, especially if it's like a temporary or an administrative furlough. But be sure you know that for sure when that happens. If you are unemployed, you can actually apply for um, health insurance through the marketplace, what we used to call Obamacare. You can go onto the marketplace and find insurance there. Sometimes it's really affordable, sometimes not, just depends a little bit on your situation. But definitely you want to make sure you've got health insurance and make sure things are, covered as best you can. So thanks, Dylan, for the link on the food pantries. That's awesome. So other questions or thoughts or comments?
Nothing at the
Nothing
moment.
at the moment.
However,
Okay.
were you thinking of consumercredit.com as a free credit counseling service? I'm just trying to type as quickly as I can so to try to get these resources out to everyone.
Yes, consumer credit counseling.
Mm-hmm.
Go to credit.org is where the consumer credit counseling is.
Okay.
We're also lucky in the Kansas City area. There is a website put together by the folks at the Federal Reserve, and it's called Money Smart. Okay. And it is a fabulous resource. I go there often if I'm looking for information on a variety of topics. And they really have it broken down by topics. So if you get into the Money Smart website, you can find out information on, housing and mortgages and what do you do if you need help or if you've had a job loss or what have you. So I would also highly encourage you to use that website. It's free and the resources there are phenomenal. So definitely add that to your list of places to check out.
Yep, I went ahead and dropped that in the chat as well. So I realize a lot of information being thrown at everyone, a lot of links
Right.
here, there, everywhere. Feel free to go ahead and click on them, save them for later. But Denise, did you have anything more to add? I'm not seeing any further
Yeah.
questions coming through.
Yeah, I'll just hit this last slide. So this is me and where I'm located and my phone number and email. Don't hesitate to shoot me a note or call me if you have other questions or need help in kind of navigating things. And I would be more than happy to do what I can to help you out at this time. So yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and thank you, Denise, for sharing all this useful, wonderful information. Our next Career and Finance presentation will take place Thursday, June 25th at 2 p.m. and will be focused on exploring new careers. That June 25 program will again feature Karen Sillins from A Plus Career and Resume. More career and finance programs are listed at jocolibrary.org/events/career-finance. Also, be sure to follow the library's Facebook page, facebook.com/jocolibrary, to receive notifications for additional live online Johnson County Library programming for all ages. Thank you all once again, and have a wonderful day.